Hello people on the internet. In this video, you will see me painting 2 paintings on location. Special thanks to David for inviting a group of us artist friends to his house at Uxbridge for some plein air painting. I was looking at these 2 trees.
Huh?
These 2.
Yeah, I think that's really nice.
I brought my go-to plein air canvas panel from Winsor & Newton, sized 11 by 14 inches. I prefer a smaller size like 9 by 12, but I am currently stuck with 11 by 14 because it's a size that fits my wet canvas carrier. Oh, you're mixing colors. Man of good preparation. I like how you have toned canvas. I choose this composition because I saw those interesting sloping angles, the triangles, and I like the captivating depth. The immediate foreground, medium ground, and background here has good separation, yet brings one to the other. I love how the 2 trees are there leading my eyes far and beyond. So I've been enjoying this approach that I recently adopted, which is to start the painting with a wishy-washy underlayer, or what the academics would call the dead color layer. Because the layer is so washed out, the skin tone is so gray, the person doesn't look alive, therefore it's dead color layer. With the dead color layer on, which here is just a thin layer of average color, I start to add the next layer with more information and thicker paints. After locking down all the big compositional shapes, I start to separate light and shadow shapes to let there be forms. Filling shadow shapes is also the first step to build up a wider range of values. I also don't lay in the absolute darks right away. I like to slowly build it up. It's a personal choice and it will affect the result of the painting style. What naked eyes see and what the camera captures can differ, which is why the shadow color on my canvas appear more vibrant than what you see on screen. But the shadow color on canvas is also being filmed. Why is it still brighter, you might ask? I think that's because my canvas receives more light than the actual shadows, and the camera's exposure settings are based on the painting itself. We all know when photography was invented in the early 19th century, it brought a revolutionary change to the art world. Before photography, realism paintings were the primary means of capturing and documenting reality. But photographers' ability to capture minute details and capture moments exactly as they were, without the subjective filter of the artist's hand, have altered both the perception and the creation of what is considered real in art. For me, I enjoy translating reality through space and time onto a 2D surface. That's what plein air or painting from life is to me. Painters who paint what they see are translators. But unlike a language translator who has to strive for precision, painters can interpret and stylize their work. And beyond that, a school of thought I enjoy to follow sometimes is to change some elements of the composition to create something timeless and classic. Other approaches aim to capture the moment exactly as it is, portraying mundane and fleeting scenes. Like realism and hyperrealism, I enjoy them all. Sometimes I think about those things that I just shared with you. Try to place myself somewhere on the map that the great artists and the art critiques have created. But more often, I just paint because I enjoy it and I just want to make something I think is cool. As compositional elements slowly fall into space, I began to notice the lack of contrast in the immediate foreground. To address this, I deepened the shadows and added lighter highlights. But at the same time, I don't want too much focus on the immediate foreground either, because my goal is to lead viewers' eyes to a faraway background beyond the gap of the distant 2 large trees. Therefore, I restrained the contrast and kept the edges of the foreground vegetation relatively soft, which goes against the conventional rules of creating depth, but I didn't think much of it. Another thing I knew I was going to try when I decided on this composition is using impasto to suggest all the highlights on the crops. I find those highlights charming, and I know I would enjoy creating textures to suggest them. I was already kinda exhausted after the first painting because I didn't bring enough water and got a bit dehydrated. Anyway, I just turned around and walked 20 meters, have my stuff set up and ready to paint this little cabin. Again, I started the painting with thin oil paint, almost like watercolor. Blocking in the important shapes, I then added some dark accents to establish value relations. I expected a chill time in this shaded area, but mosquitoes had the same idea. There were so many of mosquitoes, and they were not ordinary mosquitoes. They were bodybuilder mosquitoes. I got bites all over me and couldn't focus for long. Even with this god-tier remedy, I still had to end this painting much earlier than usual. I started using bold brush strokes on this second painting with much thicker paint. It's definitely more fun to paint this way than to carefully measure everything. However, the shapes can't be too off. This method of painting requires a solid foundation in recognizing shapes and the ability to eyeball their ratios with relative accuracy. I recommend fellow learners practice bulk drawing copies to improve this skill. Also, instead of the usual amber tone for sketching out the painting, I used green this time. I filled in the sky color much later in the process than I usually do. There's no particular reason. There are a million different ways to approach a painting. I enjoy experimenting and find that short session paintings, like en plein air paintings, are a great opportunity to try out new techniques. This second painting was more challenging than the first because I was dehydrated, attacked by bodybuilder mosquitoes, and dealing with fast-changing light. Light changes much faster as it gets closer to sunset, so it's important to lock down the light and shadow shapes you like. Chasing the light usually doesn't end well. I hope I can lock down the spot of light inside the cabin before it disappears. As it's important for the composition, it gives the cabin more depth and makes the painting more lively. I wish I could have made the shadow colors more reddish purple and added more contrast. I blame that on my laziness on not cleaning my brush enough before adding a new color. And I blame those furious mosquitoes for causing me to lose my patience. It's important to find excuses to feel better about oneself. Thank you for clicking on this video, joining me on this journey. It was fun. Thanks again to David for inviting and the delicious lemonade. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Paint check.
I was much more neat today. You see?
Yeah.
Is this today?
Yeah, I did
Yes.
animation.
But it's better than usual.
There's
isn't it?
one here.
Just one.